and welcome to this very special show that we have for you on blockchain technology. It really, of course, has been making news, whether it has been cryptocurrencies or the technology in all of last year. But let's take a look on how they have performed in 2018. Bitcoin is up 4.6% from Jan 1, but it did touch a low of $13,287 on 11th of Jan. Ethereum has had a good run in 2018 so far. Prices are up a whopping 60%. Ripple has fallen this year, down about 10% from the start of 2018, but it is the technology that behind cryptocurrencies that we are going to talk about today, and that is the blockchain technology. What is this technology? Well, blockchain technology is something that can store anything of value, money, titles, identities, or even votes. And it can not only store it, but also be used to manage, move, and keep securely these items privately. The technology can be extremely useful for sectors like insurance and real estate when it comes to storing information. In fact, a Goldman Sachs report suggests that globally, real estate sector could save around $2 to $4 billion by an year using this technology. It is the very nature of it that makes it secure and private. No data entered in a blockchain can be altered without the consent of other participants. The word cryptocurrency is usually associated with blockchain. While the association is legit, a cryptocurrency is only a product that uses this technology. For example, Bitcoin uses blockchain, while blockchain can be used for other purposes as well. Anything of a value stored in a blockchain is called tokens, and there are two types of them: intrinsic token and asset-backed tokens. Cryptocurrencies are a great example of intrinsic tokens, while asset-backed tokens are used in agriculture, oil, education, etc. All the information that doesn't form a part of transaction is stored as tokenless blockchains. Moving on from tokens to coin offerings, a term commonly used is also called as initial coin offerings. It is used by new cryptocurrency firms as a mode of raising digital cash backed by legal tender. This can bypass rigorous capital raising process required to be followed by investors. When it comes to using blockchain, Indian banks are working with their international counterparts to create bank chain. A bank chain will use blockchain technology to store KYC details, contract management, loan syndication, peer-to-peer payments, and cross-border remittance as well. SBI is leading the consortium of Indian banks, and with that, joining me now on the show are from Amsterdam is Richard Kastelein, who is founder of Blockchain News, and in studio with me also are Sudhin Baraukar, who is head of innovation at State Bank of India. Manish Kumar is co-founder of Grex, and a private market platform for startups, and from our Noida studio is blockchain expert Aditya Dev. And I want to start with you, Sudhin. I mean, there is so much happening right now, and while of course there is a bit of a question mark on what the cryptocurrencies are all about, but we understand on what really blockchain can do. I want to understand on what you are coming in from, what are banks really trying to get a form into with?
So we see from a bank perspective, blockchain really being the next big financial revolution that's going to happen. A lot of the research independent groups are talking about that the traditional banking services will probably cease to exist by 2030. What blockchain brings to the table, especially for banks, is huge. What do banks do? We collect money, we lend money, we move money, we protect money, we secure money. All these banking services can be built using blockchain. We got to know that blockchain is an emerging tech, and it would take some time for it to go mainstream. Therefore, last year, we formed an alliance of banks, and right now the number is 30 plus. These are 23 Indian major banks and 7 Middle Eastern major banks, so that we can come together and start doing pilots on these, which we started last year. And in December of last year, just last month, we in fact took one of the pilots, smart contracts, into beta production. This year, we have a more aggressive way of taking blockchain ahead, and we intend to take at least about 4 of these pilots into beta production and then make it mainstream. These are KYC, anti-money laundering, consortium syndicate financing, and some others that we want to take it ahead. So getting all the banks together, we shed our ecosystem. We worked together in an ecosystem and then took this ahead.
What is the stand right now when it comes to blockchain? Because it's not just India, as Sudhin was explaining. It is also about the views that we have seen coming from Dubai, from Japan. Almost all the central banks are putting out positive notes when it comes to blockchain, even as much as how they would want to use their government or ministry to get into it and start using it. How do you see that acceptance?
Because they don't have a choice. They either get in the game or they get out. I mean, look at the reality is that for the first time in history, liquidity is being created from the bottom up. Okay, we're creating new money from communities and networks of people rather than the central banks and bankers printing it. So it's a completely different mechanism. And it's controversial and it's very different. And the banks are trying to find their way in. I mean, through R3 and through the Indian organizations, et cetera. My feelings about India, if you want to know personally,
sure,
is that when I was in India, and I was very much focused on the ICO and like, how can we raise money to spur on this blockchain revolution? How can we create liquidity? And the main problem with India is they don't have any legislation. So if you're looking at countries like Gibraltar, Switzerland, Malta, countries, the usual small suspects in many ways, are writing legislation that allows for legal ICOs. And I think India, if they don't take that path, or even Dubai, I spoke to Dubai, is not moving in that direction either, even though they want to be the biggest blockchain country in the world, is that you have to seriously address the ICO situation and take it as it is, and also be willing to adapt to the community itself. I mean, so that was my voice in India, at least, that they should be open to creating some kind of legislation for initial coin offerings and raising money.
We are actually awaiting that right now as you speak, Richard. But that really brings me to you, Aditya. As Richard pointed out, that it is about the initial coin offerings, and that's a bit of a gray area when you talk about the Indian markets here, even as blockchain, of course, has a wider acceptance. What is your sense? How important is that? And what would you want to make in sense of a presentation if you were talking to government about that?
So look, if you're serious about solving some of the global development challenges that the world faces, or that we face here in India, you have to really try to understand what blockchain has made available for you. It's a new architecture of value. It's a new way of incenting people to do the things that they should be doing to create value together. These are new ways to do, for example, de-risking agriculture, energy trading. You want to be able to make this kind of decentralized approach available for the larger number of poorer and rural citizens who are furthest away from cities where network effects can benefit people. So, what I want to see right now is not just a preliminary understanding of blockchain, which has arisen here, and a conversation like we're having here and has been happening in many studios and in conferences for the last 6 months, but a more evolved thought about what the developmental path of this nation will look like, or must look like, and how it must involve blockchain and crypto tokens as a central piece of that.
Manish, I want you to bring you in here as well, because we've spoken about on what it really means, as Sudhin just explained about banks. Aditya talked about how it can help agriculture as well. We know that Niti Aayog is looking at India chain. We know there's a bank chain. There are also many people walking into it right now. NSE, RBI, government are trying to explore end-to-end solutions. There have been pilot projects done as well. Where do we stand right now? How deep are we into it? How much time is it going to really take before we start implementing this?
So I've been interacting with some government officials, and in limited understanding of what I have developed is they are genuinely seized of the matter. They understand that, but you can understand it, this is too crypto for them, okay. Too much of a crypto for them. So they have concerns. Blockchain has been endorsed even by Indian regulators, Indian government, etc. So blockchain application is not a problem. But where it comes to something that is called a currency, and it takes a different proportion, and ICO, etc., then you have a problem emanating, from blockchain. However, in fact, with all the hue and cry, some of the cycles of blockchain have not really gone by. So there is no empirical data to say that it is good this way or bad that way conclusively. So that is what is holding our government as well. They usually follow the cycles and not lead them. To give you examples, some of the apparent problems that they're facing if we regulate it, for example, the anonymity may go, then why should we regulate it, and would it really have value or thereafter? So why take a step which may anyway destroy it? Number two might be that if you allow a free float peer-to-peer cash equivalent crypto money to exist, what happens to inflation? What happens to capital controls, etc. of the country? So these are some of the larger concerns, which may not be concerns for us as entities which are trying to do blockchain-based applications, but the government has a different view, and that is stopping them from taking some steps. And in fact, I've had the fortune of talking to some of them, and one thing that I did prevail upon is any blockchain application that anyone will build eventually will hold assets, whether it is agri-asset or commodities or stocks or anything. Now these applications will only be half built until you allow a kind of a crypto payment along with that. So look at this way or that way. It will not prosper beyond a point, and we are looking at you for, if you don't create a currency, then allow a guideline or something, but allow us to complete the picture along with the banks, and there may be solutions that we can advise.
Oh, absolutely. So we have spoken about the challenges and opportunities that, of course, this sector holds. But with that, it's time for a very quick break. When we come back, we'll also ask our expert panel to come out with solutions on what perhaps the government is looking to do with this sector.